This video is sponsored by Squarespace. 12 of 24 races complete in 2025. It's mid-season time. Let's rank all the drivers from 21st to 1st. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. As well as my ranking, I also asked you a lot via the community tab on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see the posts. When you've watched through the full video, I'll pin a comment down below. You can vote for whose ranking is best, mine or yours. So let's start in P21, and I've gone for Franco Costa. And actually, we are aligned, so have you. You've given him 3.19 out of 10. Now look, of course, we need to preface that he was thrown in at the deep end, right? Got the opportunity at Williams last year, impressed. He had some crashes, but he impressed broadly. He was very, very close to Alex. Scarily close from an Alex fan's point of view. Flavio wanted him in. He wanted the Mercado Libre money as well that comes along with Franco. And I've got to say, you know, he's merited the opportunity as much as I don't think Jack deserved to lose his seat. It's not like Franco didn't deserve a chance. However, jumping into a brand new environment, different engine, you've got drivers around you who've already had 6 races experience in 2025 and a kind of match fit. It was always going to ask a lot of Franco to do well. And I would actually say his most positive stat is his head-to-head performance with Pierre Gasly in terms of qualifying. His average 0.274 of a second so far off of the Frenchman, which I think given everything, you know, Gasly's a demon over a lap. Has been at that team now for a good amount of time. Franco's chucked in last minute. Within 3 tenths is actually pretty respectable. If it had a proper pre-season and was fully geared up, ready to go, that's probably within a couple of tenths, which is very good. However, the crashes have just been a problem, right? Whether it's Imola in his first qualifying session, shunting out, Silverstone in qualifying as well. Look, you can bring that money with you, but then if you're burning all that money in crash damage, it doesn't really pay the bills, does it? I'll be surprised if he doesn't get the rest of the season. I think he is worth sticking by. I think there's enough of a glimpse of something really special there that can tick all the boxes. But he is testing Alpine's patience. He seemed to have a gearbox clutch issue, which the team have been very hush-hush about. Is it Franco's fault? Is it not? I can't confirm either way, but my intuition is that it probably is Franco making rookie mistakes. But again, if you chuck this guy in last minute, like, unfortunately, this kind of stuff's going to happen. P20, I've gone for Lance Stroll. Now, this might sound very harsh given where he is in the driver standings, ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso. But hear me out on this one, right? Obviously, banked points early doors, did well in the rain in Australia to bank P6, P9 in China, then most recently in the rain again a P7 in Silverstone. Lance is decent in the rain, which all great drivers are, okay? That is clearly a skill he has. He's demonstrated it many times in his F1 career. But outside of that, there's been like nothing to write home about at all. And he's still got such a rookie error in him, which for a guy who's 26 years of age, in his 9th season of F1, is not good enough. Of course, that crash with Charles in Monaco practice pushed Pierre Gasly off in Canada and has his, you know, garage meltdown. We don't know to what extent that impacted him having that race off with the injury. But given the context of how many drivers right now are in their rookie seasons or at a new team, Lance doesn't have any of that. You know, he's bedded in, he's settled in with this Formula One team. He's in the prime of his career. This should be the best version of Lance Stroll ever. And he's over 3 tenths being out-qualified by Fernando Alonso, who is fantastic, of course he is. But he's also about 125 years old. I mean, Lance has only got 1 Q3 all season, starting P8 in Imola, and Fernando Alonso still went quicker and started P5. There's a lot of benefit of doubt going on at the back of the grid in this list, right? Because there's a lot of crazy situations going on, but Stroll doesn't have that excuse. As for your P20, you've gone with Jack Doohan with 3.55 out of 10. P19 for me, I've gone Jack Doohan. Now, of course, Jack was way more prepared than Franco going into this season, done a bunch of TPC testing over previous years as well. You know, got that final race in Abu Dhabi at the end of last year, replacing Esteban Ocon, and actually had some pretty close calls to Pierre Gasly in qualifying. If Lewis hadn't spun in Australia in Q2, then Doohan almost certainly is getting into Q3. I think we saw enough from Jack to indicate, you know what, we give this lad a bit more time and he can be a very, very solid F1 driver. But unfortunately, the crashes made it harder for himself than it needed to be, didn't it? And I'm not so much talking about the one in the rain in Australia, because many a driver, many a rookie, many an experienced old head, you know, fell afoul of those conditions, right? It was a bit mad, it was a bit crazy, these things happen. But then Suzuka, that shunt, like, I mean, not knowing to turn DRS back off, you know, into turn 1, that can't be happening. Sure, part of the blame sits with the team, absolutely. They should have known and told him, Jack, you need to, by the way, manually turn this off. Pierre's doing it, you should be doing it as well. But Jack's the one driving. He should have known. And he paid a big price for it. And so did the team, quite literally, in the bank account, because that car was written off. Look, he wasn't afforded the time. Will he jump back in the car with Franco struggling seemingly? Who knows at this rate? It's honestly a merry-go-round. It's a shame because Jack seems a really sound bloke, but I think his opportunity's been and gone, unfortunately. In P19 for you, you've gone Yuki Tsunoda with 4.05 out of 10. P18 for me, I've gone Liam Lawson. Red Bull claimed to see more in him than Yuki at the start of the season. That's why they gave him the seat for an entire 2 weekends. So then Yuki jumps into the seat and performances don't really improve in much of a measurable way. Of course, Austria, big highlight, very recent, that performance as well. P6, a great drive from Liam. It needed to come because he was drowning big time. And Monaco P8 as well, got into the points, helped Isaac out, but I mean, that race was a bit of a joke. He was spending most of his time just purposefully holding up traffic behind him. I do think there's a lot of mitigating factors with Liam, which will see me and you disagree, you know, ultimately on where he goes. He had the pre-season testing at Red Bull, only 2 weekends, then moves to Racing Bulls, is on the opposite side of the garage to where he was before, so it's a different race engineer. All of that stuff is going to play a part, and obviously Hadjar doing really well, piling the pressure on Liam as well when he hasn't really responded. Again, Austria was great, but he needs to keep pushing these weekends in because Lindblad is waiting. And having over a 2/10 on average quali deficit to your rookie teammate, it's been enough races now. Liam needs to find something and he's not finding enough quickly enough. It's not been great, has it? But I also really feel for him. I really feel for the situation that he's in. So again, I'm giving him concessions for that. Although I say we disagree, in P18 for you is also Liam Lawson with 4.20 out of 10. P17, I've gone Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki's definitely propped up here by his performances in that Racing Bulls at the start of the season, right? Which in some ways, I guess, showed to Red Bull, look at me, you should have picked me in the first place. I put it in the top 10 qualifying in Australia, P5 in fact, banger, in sprint and normal qualifying in China. He may not have been able to convert into the points, but you know, him getting the call up to Red Bull Racing, a lot of people were calling for that at the end of last season, for that to be the choice that should have been made originally anyway. Unfortunately, it hasn't really panned out any differently, has it? Obviously, he had his big shunt in the Red Bull in Imola in qualifying, plus loads of just contacts through various Grand Prix, right? Bahrain with Sainz, Austria with Colapinto, Saudi with Gasly. He's been basically 7/10 on average off of Max in qualifying. Only 4-point scoring finishes since he jumped into that Red Bull, including the Miami sprint. It's difficult, but you can only judge the performances that are in front of you, and they've not been good. But we know Yuki is capable of being more than good. P17 for you, you've gone Lance Stroll with 4.56 out of 10. Quick break, let's have a little chat about today's video sponsor, Squarespace, right? The website building platform that I have been using since 2018, predating this YouTube channel. I used to use it for my portfolio, I use it for TOMMO'S my merchandise website, and you can use it too, whether you want to start a portfolio, a blog, an online e-commerce store like I have. Squarespace has thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates. It's honestly a breeze for anybody to build their very own beautiful online home, helped further by Squarespace's AI-powered software. It just makes it so easy to get started, and then you can just keep iterating and keep improving. 24/7 customer support if you do need any help is there, and it's completely free to try. It only bills you when you want to publish your finished website live to the world. I think it's worth a go, and if you do, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. P16, I've gone Gabriele Bortoleto. Now, I'm a big fan of Gabby. I think he comes across really well, and actually I think he's compared really favourably to Nico Hulkenberg, at least over a lap in qualifying, right? He's within half a tenth of Nico. However, before doing this mid-season report, I literally went and watched through all of the highlights of all the races so far this year, and damn, Gabby had a really messy start to the season. Various spin-offs in Australia, China and Japan. He's a rookie having a rookie season, and very little preparation relative to many of the other rookies. Bortoleto and Hadjar, you have to take that into account as well. They didn't get loads of TPC, loads of FP1s like many other rookies did. Look, it is hard to shine when you're towards the back, and the Sauber only really got performance when it bolted that Spain upgrade on the car. And yes, of course, Gabby secured that P8 finish in Austria, good points for him But Hulkenberg, you've seen him really exploit the maximum of that car. He's scored points in every single race since that upgrade went on as Nico. Gabby hasn't been so fortunate and hasn't had the experience ultimately to do so. And I do hope now he's got a car underneath him, he can start banging in point scoring finishes more consistently and be closer to Nico in that really important race pace that will come. I'm sure of it. It feels harsh putting in P16. I think he is a big jump up from P17 in my opinion, and these ones coming up are very, very tight. But I've gone Bortoletto. As for you in P16, you've gone Carlos Sainz, 5.37 out of 10. We'll chat more about him in a sec, because I think this is very harsh. P15 for me, I've gone Ollie Bman, and so have you. You gave him a 6.09 out of 10. Ollie. Look, I can't find the stat. I did try and have a look, but I'm sure one of you in the comments will confirm. Is Ollie one of the drivers with like the most positions gained so far this season? Or am I completely making that up? I think that's true. Sources very much trust me, bro, on that one. Look, he's rapid over a lap. He's already there with Esteban. It is the smallest qualifying gap between teammates. Esteban's only 18 thousandths clear of Ollie over a lap on average so far this season. So impressive. But they are both in a peaky car, or a peaky Haas that has performance or doesn't. And especially on Ollie's side, he's had some pretty rotten luck in terms of technical problems as well. Ollie has also demonstrated periods of consistency, right? He had back-to-back point scoring finishes in China, Japan and Bahrain, and back-to-back P11 finishes in the last 3 rounds, the most recent 3 rounds, which is the highest position you can finish without getting any points. The problem though, Ollie is having a very rookie season. He goes and pulls that dumb mistake, I can't believe he did it, in Silverstone, so annoying, which then undoes the qualifying performance he goes on to have, putting it P8, has to drop back to P18 because he gets a 10-place grid drop. You can't drive like that under red flags, Ollie, and he's done it numerous times this year. Also had his nasty shunt in Australia, which led to an absolutely horrific Australian Grand Prix weekend, even though he was like the only rookie to actually finish that race, which is kind of crazy. Errors haven't defined his season, but there have been some very big positives out of Bman, so he deserves credit for that. For me, I do put him slightly ahead of Bortoletto, not by much, but by enough. P14 for me, I've gone Lewis Hamilton. And so have you. You've also gone P14 Lewis Hamilton. You've given him 6.18 out of 10. Look, that was a huge result for Lewis in the China sprint. Shows that you put him at the front of the field and he can do it, and he did it in a Ferrari. Massive, right? Love that. Unfortunately, since then, Ferrari have had to jack up the ride heights because of the disqualifications, and that car's performance seems to have fallen by the wayside. Now, he has been pretty consistently slower than Charles Leclerc in both quali and race pace. Not every weekend, but most of the time, average it out, he is the slower driver. But I would actually say the gap between them, especially in quali pace, right? It's like less than a tenth and a half, is closer than I thought it would be going into this season. I thought we'd be seeing, you know, high 2 if not 3 tenths. He was very strong in Silverstone as well. I think he was ultimately kind of a bit unfortunate not to sneak on the podium, another podium at his home Grand Prix. The thing is, he has been very down on himself. I don't think we're seeing the best version of Lewis Hamilton, and yes, it is a new team for him and it's a very different team culturally in all that way, but with his experience you have to set higher standards, higher expectations, and for me this list is very much about, you know, how impressive a job do I think they're doing. And Lewis has struggled. Of course he was going to, but especially in race pace, I was expecting a bit more from him this year. However, I do think this 25 season is kind of a necessary evil for him to get on top of the car, and then he can go into 26 and blow the bloody doors off. P13 for me, I've gone with Carlos Sainz. I can see the comments now. Sainz has been rubbish this year. What are you talking about, Tomo? Hang on a second. Has he had a more challenging start to his life at Williams than he would have liked? Yes, of course he has. Has he had lots of bad luck? Absolutely. Whether it was the kind of torque peak in Australia that put him in the wall, brakes on fire in Australia, couldn't even start that race. Yuki put a hole in his side pod in Bahrain, need I go on? Look, here's a little stat, right? So Alex and Carlos's highest qualifying position that they've managed so far this year is P6. Alex has done it once. Carlos has done it 3 times. The difference is Carlos's bad days in qualifying have been a lot worse than Alex's bad days in qualifying. Hence why that gap is averaging around a tenth in favour of Alex over a lap. But look, given it's his first year with a Mercedes PU, It's a new environment, and I know that's the case for Lewis as well, but Lewis is a lot more experienced than Carlos. 13 points to Alex's 46 sounds bad. It's a big gap, but in my opinion, that does not reflect the performance differential. Alex has been better, yes, on average, but it's not by loads. And given the trajectory of Sauber and all these other teams and Williams not developing the car, you know, it'll probably stay big to the end of the season, but I don't think that actually reflects the quality of performance that Carlos has been able to put in when things haven't gone against it. P13 for you is Esteban Ocon, 6.38 out of 10. P12 for me, I've gone Fernando Alonso. Listen, the iconic Spaniard has managed 5 top 10 qualifyings in the last 6 Grand Prix. Pretty impressive. Over 3 tenths clear of Stroll, like I mentioned earlier, on average. The season started a bit slowly, but Aston have brought upgrades to that car, and it seems to have seen Fernando flourish a bit more. He's done better in this kind of second quarter of the season than he did in the first quarter, I think. And actually, I think we're at the point now where Fernando still being at this level at his age, you have to almost give him extra credit. Yes, I know he's got tons of experience, but a rookie comes in with no experience and is quick and is impressive. Cool. Fernando's fighting against time, right? It's coming for all of us. I hate to say it. And he's still up there, still doing absolute bits, which is amazing. But he has had a few uncharacteristic errors this year. I want to say Spain, Miami, good examples of him just kind of spinning of his own accord for no real reason. It hasn't been perfect, but Fernando tends to find a way to shine through when it matters. And now the car's got performance, he's delivering. 4-point scoring finishes in the last 4, 3 P11s this season as well, and his own fair share of technical unreliability to deal with. So all in all, Fernando's been good. P12 out of 21 doesn't sound great, but actually, he's done well. As for you in P12, only 0.02 ahead of Esteban Ocon, you've gone for Gabriel Bortoleto, 6.40 out of 10. P11 for me, I've gone Esteban Ocon. Deal with it. I know none of you like Ocon, okay? He's cooked this year. He's done really well, okay? He just has. Yes, Ollie's been able to match Esteban in qualifying, and when a rookie's matching you over a lap, that's not a great look, but Esteban has 23 points, Ollie has 6, and that's for good reason, because Esteban has capitalised on those opportunities when they presented themselves. Used his experience to do bits. P5 in China, huge. P7 in Monaco, huge. Even his P10 in Austria might only be a point, but he recovered from P17 in qualifying to make his way through and get on the scoreboard. Like, come on. And even when he had his nasty shunt in Bahrain qualifying, he was still able to recover and get P8 in that Grand Prix. I think that Haas is a very up and down car, and I think Ocon's kind of getting close to maximising the package that's underneath him most weekends. Yes, he'll have the odd weekend where he's just a bit kind of out of sorts and not really there, but all in all, I think he's been very good this year. As for you in P11, you've gone Fernando Alonso, 6.47 out of 10. Okay, top 10 time, and for me, I've gone Andrea Kimi and Tonelli, who is having as rookie seasons go, isn't he? Incredible highs and absolutely pitiful lows. Both of his Miami qualifying performances, in sprint qualifying when he put it on sprint pole and on normal qualifying where he was right up there as well, were incredible. And as a rookie, those peaks really drag him up this rating for me, because it's those peaks that show what he is capable of and what he can do if he just, you know, is a rough diamond and just needs some shining. And then in Canada as well, yes, the Mercedes was very adept to that track on that weekend. George won the race, of course, but Kimi almost got P2 if it wasn't for Max's stonking out lap. And in race pace was actually pretty close to George, which is key. Now, it hasn't happened a lot this year, but those moments are enough for me to be like, wow, this kid's got star quality. He is actually the real deal. If Mercedes just give him time, which I think they will, he's going to get there. But then, of course, you can't disregard the howlers. Of course, they are there, right? Harpooning Max in Austria. Big L. Clanger of an Imola, Monaco, Spain triple header. And he's over 3 tenths on average behind George Russell in qualifying, who is Mr. Saturday for a reason, at the top of his game, in his prime, by the way. So that's a huge, huge yardstick to hold to Kimi Antonelli. But again, at 18 years old, to have done what he has done, to have the moments he has had, hugely impressive to me. So much hype around Kimi coming into this year in Formula 1. I've seen enough to see the light and to put in P10. And actually, if I refer to the spreadsheet, so have you. You've also put Kimi Antonelli P10 with 6.76 out of 10. P9 for me, I've gone Nico Hulkenberg. Now, not to spoil the rest of the video, but this is a This is a big difference between the two of us. And of course, as much as the next person gassed that Nico got that podium in Silverstone, made all the right calls himself on the radio to get it done as well. That was his experience shining through and showing how good he actually is. But we can't just look at that result. There are 11 more to consider. Now, like I mentioned earlier, big upgrade came in Spain on that Sauber, and since that Spain upgrade came, Nico's delivered points every single weekend, including the P5 in Spain itself, right? Smashed it straight away. He also capitalised on the crazy conditions in Australia at the start of the year. Could afford to gamble because he was had nothing to lose in that position and got P7, fair play. But outside of that, and again, it's hard because the Sauber was a rubbish car, but the season was pretty barren. I think the reason I'm not putting Hulkenberg higher is because of how close it is over a lap relative to Bortoleto. And I do think Bortoleto doing a very good job over a lap, but I think Nico should be put in 2/10 minimum. I think given how good Nico is over a lap, and I believe he is over a lap, and we saw that relative to Magnussen last year. I get as well, this is a new team for Nico Hulkenberg. It's easy to forget that. It's easy to forget for a lot of these drivers. Ocon, it's a new team for him, for example, right? And you have to take that into account. But like, Nico's only made Q2 on 3 occasions this season, never a Q3. Gabby's got a Q3 to his name. So I do think over a lap, Nico hasn't fully exploited everything. But of course, points are won on Sunday, right? I'm kind of talking myself up here to Nico, but I look at the drivers I've put ahead of Nico and I think actually they kind of have impressed me a little bit more this season. But still, great job from Hulkenberg, no question. As for you in P9, you've gone Pierre Gasly, 7.07 out of 10. P8 for me, I've gone Pierre Gasly. I've put Gasly over Hulkenberg. And I do think if you look over the totality of the season, I can't speak. Perhaps the Alpine started the season the stronger car, now it's weaker than the Sauber. Like, it's very hard to judge these drivers because they're all in different cars, of course. But I would say Gasly's season as a totality, having watched all the highlights of all the races to refresh my memory, has been more impressive. I mean, Gasly has been superb in qualifying. 7 Q3s in that Alpine from 12 attempts in normal Sunday qualifying. Absolutely top tier. And in Silverstone, Gasly put in a drive every bit as good as Nico's to get that P6 over the line. Big drives in Bahrain and Spain to deliver points, and all while this chaos is kind of erupting around him at Alpine. Yes, Pierre's been at that team for a while now, but that must hinder you. It certainly can't help your calls, can it, as a driver, when you know all this craziness is going on, your teammates coming in and out, you're losing your team principal, Luke de Meo's gone, there's all this uncertainty, and Pierre's still finding a way to be one of the only sources of reliability, consistency, and performance at that team. He's also averaged over 2.5 tenths ahead of both of his rookie teammates, which is all you can ask of a driver to lead the way. And yes, he ran into the back of Yuki at Monaco, which was sloppy for him, absolutely. And actually got tangled with Yuki in Saudi as well. That was more on Yuki, in my opinion. Other than that, like, he's been great. And as for you in P8, you've gone Charles Leclerc with 7.21 out of 10. P7 for me, I've gone Isaac Hadjar. What a lad. What an absolute geezer. He has been one of the stories of this 2025 season. Because to bounce back from that incredible disappointment in Australia, not even getting to start the race, having very little pre-season preparation, just like Bortoleto, right, compared to Behrman and Antonelli and Lawson and all those guys, has delivered some huge Sunday qualifying performance, a 50% hit rate in Q3 in Sunday qualies this year. Converting P6 from quali to race in Monaco, yes, helped out by Liam a bit as well, but just around that track to deliver P6 in qualifying, crazy. This kid's got it, absolutely. He's got the charisma as well. He's got a bit about him. He's got the belief. He's got that little bit of ego that you need. He's mustard, mate. I love him. Now, he has had 3 pointless finishes in the last 3 Grand Prix, which might have calmed the hype down a little bit around him. But over the course of the 12 races we've had so far this year, with the lack of preparation, the pressure, top tier, different gravy, love your work. As for P7 for you, you've gone Alex Albon with 7.74 out of 10. Not sure about that. P6 for me, Charles Leclerc. It is the man from Monaco, who has had a frustrating season, to put it lightly, but there have been highlights. Rapid with his broken front wing in China, podiums in Saudi, Monaco, Spain and Austria. Look, with the McLaren so quick, George so consistent, Max doing what he can do, pulling out a clutch performance in that Red Bull, those podium places are few and far between, but Charles has consistently enabled himself to get there or close. Has it been perfect? No, he had his spins in Australia, a race that ended up going absolutely awfully for him. That crash in FP1 Canada was, as Charles would say, I'm stupid. That was a bit of a dumb one, and actually started the season a bit on par with Lewis. I was a bit like, hang on a second, Charles, you should be dominating this guy. But as the season's gone on, I think that gap has grown mostly, and now Charles pretty consistently has the edge on his teammate. Look, he's definitely more comfortable driver in this capricious Ferrari, and he has demonstrated some excellent race pace. He hasn't really shone as much as we're used to Charles shining. I can't really say it. Charles shining. Try and say that 10 times really quick. Charles shining. Charles. Anyway, quality pace is what he's known for, is what I'm trying to say, but his race pace has been excellent this year. Give him the car, please, Fred. Please, please. It is hard to rate his season. I'm happy putting in P6. As for your P6, you've gone Lando Norris with 7.92 out of 10. P5 for me, I've gone Lando Norris. Now, of course, some superb weekends of note so far this year. Australia, top tier. Austria, top tier. Monaco, top tier. Lovely jubbly. And those were his 3 pole positions of the year that he's got. So he's got 100% conversion of pole positions in 2025. And those weekends on their own proved that he is absolutely capable of winning a world championship. No question. He has the talent, the minerals are there. However, you cannot ignore the mistakes that have littered his season, these 12 weekends so far. You have to acknowledge them. Messed up China qualifying, false start in Bahrain, and losing out will to will with George in Bahrain at the end. He really should have got past him, and he didn't. Talking of should have got past and didn't, took way too long to get past Lewis Hamilton in Saudi Arabia. And then in Canada, messed up qualifying, great recovery drive, ruins it, undoes all his good work by just driving into the back of Oscar Piastri. I know the car hasn't been to his liking for a lot of this season so far. They have now made changes to hopefully align it more with the style that he wants from a car, which is great news from a title point of view, because we want to see these two banging heads and going the distance, right? But as much as the peaks have been high, if you want to win a world championship, and if Lando doesn't win it this year, he's going to look back at all of those incidents I've listed, and maybe others as well, for the rest of this year, and think, I could have done it. P5 for you is Isaac Hadjar with 8.03 out of 10. P4 for me, it's Alex Albon. Of course it is. I'm very biased. He's been great this year. Please. It's not just bias, okay? I'm sorry. He's been fantastic. With all the expectation going into this year that Carlos Sainz was going to slap him up, it's not happened, has it? And yes, like I said, I think Carlos Sainz has actually had an underrated season so far this year, but Alex has still been the better of the two. And you know what? Like, his experience at Williams, that should be the case, because I think Alex is a very, very good F1 driver. I'm not going to be drawn into ranking him amongst all the best, but he is very good and he's very capable, and he very much deserves to be here and fighting in the top half. Alex has scored points in every single race he's finished this season, apart from the P12 in Bahrain. 3 P5 finishes to his name in Australia, Miami and Imola. This is a new generation Williams for sure, and he's been part of that journey. Again, when he jumped in 22, that car was absolute rubbish. Yet here we are in Imola, scrapping with Ferraris, right? Getting pushed off by Charles. Lewis kind of got through, which was a bit unlucky. Like, bro, that is so sick. Now, the race director does love his sassy radio messages. However, he has had his fair share of technical gremlins that he's had to deal with this year. Engine cover flying off in Canada quali, and the car broke down as well in the race, and he was on the cusp of the points. And his car broke down in Austria as well. He was running P6, could have even got George for P5, but the car was like, I'm all right, I'm out. Don't squander this opportunity. We've actually got a competitive car and it just keeps breaking down. Look, I do think it's been a fantastic season from Alex, and averaging a 10th clear of Carlos is very, very respectable. And I'm chuffed, I'm gassed for him, and I think P4 is absolutely merited. And I don't care how much you're going to cry about in the comments, because I'm right. As for you in P4, you've got Max Verstappen, 8.60 out of 10. Was not expecting that. Okay, top 3 time. There were always going to be 3 drivers for me. Clear, that was always obvious. the top 3. For me, I've gone Max Verstappen, P3 in my list. The best driver in Formula 1, absolutely. The driver who's had the highest peaks this season. That overtake around the outside of Oscar Piastri in Imola was absolute filth. Clutch pole position in Suzuka to then hold off the McLarens and win. Pole in Silverstone as well. Like, great result. Yes, the low wings undid themselves in the rain on Sunday. But Max's moments have been sky high, star quality, no doubt. Has it been perfect? No, of course. He made that mistake, letting Piastri through in Melbourne in the wet. He had his spin in Silverstone, and they weren't biggies. I mean, Max's recovery drive in Silverstone was great. But then we come back to Spain. We have to come back to Spain. And honestly, without that incident, he's at least P2 in my list, maybe even top. But when you look at it back, we all saw how it played out, and if the stewards had deemed it to be deliberate, he would have got 4 points on his license and he would have got a race ban. I don't need to tell you that this is obviously deliberate. He got caught up in the heat at the moment. He did something he regretted. He said this afterwards. He cost himself a lot of points in the Drivers' Championship. It just depends on how much you take off of Max's score for this incident, because yes, it's one incident in 12 weekends, but it is a very egregious one. Without that, would I put in P1? Maybe. Still, it wouldn't have been clear P1, but I think with that, I'm happy putting in P3. Although you lot put in P4. Crazy. Crazier because you put in P3 Nico Hulkenberg with 8.62 out of 10. Now, again, Nico's been great this year, but this one stinks of recency bias. I'm not going to lie. Top 2 time. Okay, and we have the same top 2. We have the same Australian, the same Brit. And I'm British, just putting that out there, okay, before the accusations of bias start. Who am I going P2? Honestly, I've gone super back and forth on this because there's great arguments for both. And your fan vote is actually quite big, the gap between these two, bigger than I thought it would be. However, taking everything into account, taking into account your peaks, your consistency, your ability to deal with your teammate, drivers you've been up against, but also take into account experience, I've got to put George Russell in P2, and so did you, because you gave George Russell 8.64 out of 10, making him your second ranked driver of the season. Look, outside of George making the wrong kind of crazy call that he likes to do in Silverstone by pitting early onto the slicks and blah, 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 that went wrong. And in Monaco, obviously, it was a bit naughty from him cutting the corner, which actually ended up being the right thing to do from a race point of view. Outside of that, George has been so consistent, knocking on the door of podiums, left, right and centre. He's been in the top 5 for 9 of the 12 Grand Prix so far this year. Finished ahead of Max in 6 of those 12 races, which I think is an important stat because those two love to bang wheels, go head to head. The Red Bull has strengths, the Mercedes has strengths, but George has absolutely held his own at the front. Obviously, like I said, big gap to Kimi Antonelli, who is rapid, but it's not a given to be able to destroy your teammate in qualifying, even if they're a rookie. Ask Esteban, ask Nico. Great win in Canada from pole, 4 additional podiums this year, and there have been bad weekends, but that's typically aligned where the car's just not been there. You know, in Imola and Monaco, both drivers were struggling. Having Kimi alongside him does make it a bit harder to really analyse where this driver is, because we haven't, you know, seen enough of Kimi Antonelli to know exactly where his standard is right now. He is a rookie who is very raw, but I just don't think George could be doing much more to impress this season. He's been absolutely on it, and he's second for me and he's second for you, which means my P1 so far mid-season is Oscar Piastri, and so is yours, and you've given Oscar 9.16 out of 10, a big jump up by over half a point ahead of George Russell. Now, I'll link above. I did do the Red Flag podcast quite recently with the boys. They came over from the States, and I didn't put Oscar P1 in my list, but now I've gone through all the highlights and really refreshed myself on the peaks, the best moments of these drivers across the grids. I'm going to put Oscar ahead of George, and again, it's not by much, but I think the Aussie deserves it. Because his momentum at the start of the season was huge, right? Crazy overtakes on Lewis in Australia and in Saudi Arabia, right? Absolutely terrifying, but amazing. Comfortable wins in China, Bahrain, Miami, and Spain. Like, he knows how to lead from the front and convert. He outsmarted Max, you got to say, in Saudi and Miami as well with the switchback. Great move, something we haven't seen anyone be able to do really, to take Max and beat him at his own game, which you, I think, need to do to beat Max Verstappen. Oscar's shown that he can do that. And look, he has pretty consistently had one over Lando. He's averaging just over a 10th in terms of qualifying advantage, and is making way less mistakes than Lando. Now, of course, a very silly misjudgment in Silverstone under the safety car has cost him big time in that championship fight. He's still 8 points ahead, but Oscar was the quicker driver all weekend, didn't get it done through his own mistake, and that's a 14-point swing. Without that, he would be 22 points ahead of Lando, which I think is a more representative gap of their performance so far this year. I think Lando's got a little bit more lucky than Oscar, and again, the outcome from Australia where they both went off, that could have easily happened to Lando. It could have easily gone the other way around. It's one of those that it hurt Oscar big time early on in the season as well. It's home Grand Prix, and to bounce back and recover from that result and drive the way he's driven and dominate some of these races the way he has been hugely impressive. And all this comes in the context of him being in his third F1 season with only 58 race starts to his name, when everyone around you is well into, you know, triple digits. Like, including all that context, I think Oscar merits #1 in this list. It's not been perfect, of course it hasn't. I wouldn't give him a 10 out of 10. Lando's close, and Lando's got a bit of momentum now, but Oscar's got it in him. Lando's got it in him, but for me, it's still money on Oscar, for sure, to get it done. But what do you think? Thoughts and feelings in the comments below. As always, my name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.